Happy 4th of July, everyone. It's America's birthday again, so let's celebrate by checking out some of America's best Mandela effects. If you didn't already know, a Mandela effect is when a large group of people remember something one way, only for it to actually be a different way. For example, remember learning George Washington chopped down a cherry tree and confessed to it by saying, "I cannot tell a lie"? Well, this never actually happened, but we've all heard of it before. The Mandela effect always starts the same. It's a little change here, a little tweak there, nothing that really bothers you. And then boom, you learn about the one that blows your mind and you become a believer. Not only are we going to check out a bunch of American Mandela effects, at the end of this video we're going to check out the most famous Mandela effect in every single US state. So let's get into some American Mandela effects. Who designed the first American flag? I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. Was it Betsy Ross? Growing up, you probably learned that Elizabeth Betsy Ross designed and made the first American flag back in 1776, which was adopted by Congress the very next year, the classic red and white striped flag with 13 stars. But here I am to tell you that no, there is in fact no evidence that she had anything to do with the first American flag. Nothing. She didn't design it, she didn't make it, she didn't stitch it, nothing. Mark Leepson, an American journalist and historian, stated in an interview, "As far as the big question is concerned, did she make the first American flag? Every historical study has come to show the same conclusion. There's no good historical evidence that she did. Most historians believe the story is apocryphal, as in doubtful and lacking authenticity. It's widely circulated as being true, but simply isn't." Credit for the first flag goes to Francis Hopkinson, and just wait until you hear about him. This man is going to make you feel beyond insignificant, so prepare yourself. Francis Hopkinson was an American founding father, a college graduate, a lawyer, a jurist, an author and poet, a composer, a delegate of New Jersey. He designed continental paper money, as well as early flags for the Navy and the United States. Talk about accomplished. So what do you think? Is this the history you remember, or has something changed? Up next is one of the earliest examples of a Mandela effect, but also one of the most compelling. What Mandela effect am I talking about? The 35th President of the United States, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, or better known today as JFK. On November 22nd, 1963, tragedy struck when JFK was assassinated while riding in his motorcade in Dallas, Texas. Now, this awful day isn't in dispute. This actually happened, obviously. But what is in dispute are the details surrounding it. Some claim that the footage was originally in black and white, but now it's in color. Others claim it originally didn't have sound, but now it does. But the biggest Mandela effect surrounding that day is the car JFK was riding in. It was an open-top 1961 Lincoln Continental 4-door convertible. What a mouthful. Now here's my question. On that fateful day, how many people were sitting in the car? Was it 4 people, or was it 6 people? The correct answer is now 6 people. The famous Zapruder film now shows a total of 6 people riding in the Lincoln Continental, instead of the 4 that so many people seem to remember. So where do you stand on this? Here is some interesting leftover residue arguing the case for 4 people. There are multiple museums across America with replica cars from that day, and they only have 4 seats. I've been to one of these museum displays myself, and it's a really weird detail to miss out on, that you rebuilt an exact replica of that car, but you have 4 seats instead of 6. I'm supposed to assume that everyone overlooked that small detail of an extra row of seats? Huh. Numerous books out there detailing the mystery surrounding JFK's death also make the mistake of saying the car only had 4 passengers. Even classic movies regarding the death of JFK make the same mistake. So is it all a mistake? Was no one paying attention at any point of production over the past 60 years? I think the biggest and most damning detail surrounding this historical Mandela effect is that the Secret Service got it wrong. In the investigative reenactment film made of the assassination by the Secret Service, they utilized a 4-person version of the car. How on earth could such a monumentally important aspect of the recreation be recreated incorrectly? Well, I'll let you decide. To this day, this one still has people confused. Let's talk America. If I was to ask you, what is the national bird? What would you say? If I read your mind correctly, you said it's the bald eagle, and you'd be correct. So what is the Mandela effect here? Well, what if I told you it only recently became the national bird of the US? In fact, in December 2024, it became the national bird. December 2024, does that sound right to you? Because if not, you aren't alone. In fact, numerous articles just like this one have been written about this strange development. Let's try to make sense of this all by looking at the facts. The bald eagle has been on national emblems and even used as the Great Seal of the US on official documents since 1782, meaning it's been a symbol for the US for a long time, but it's never been the national bird of the US. In fact, it was almost hunted to extinction before legal protections were put in place in the 1940s to protect them. The bald eagle is the symbol of America. I mean, we even have official state birds for all 50 US states, but somehow the bald eagle has never been the national bird, if you can believe it. It's taken nearly 250 years to apparently get to the place we all thought we were already at, but it's official now. Is this exactly what you remember, or has something changed? Also, fun fact, founding father Benjamin Franklin actually objected to the bald eagle being chosen to represent the US, calling it a, quote, bird of bad moral character, end quote. That's so great, I had no idea. Many people believe one or both of these things regarding Benjamin Franklin. The first is that he discovered electricity with his kite and key experiment. The second being that his kite was struck by lightning. Both of these things, as of now, are false and have never been true. You know what I'm going to ask. Is that what you remember? Apparently, electricity had previously been discovered and was already widely known about in the scientific community by the 1750s. Ben Franklin's kite and key experiment was to test whether or not electricity was stored in the clouds, and if it could be stored for future use, like a battery, or as he called it, a Leyden jar. Secondly, his kite was never struck by lightning. If it had been, Ben Franklin would have been gravely injured, if not outright killed, since he was holding the string that the electricity would have traveled down. All this to explain that Ben Franklin did not discover electricity and was not struck by lightning during his kite experiment. But that's not all. Even his creation of the lightning rod is now not true. He didn't create the lightning rod, he simply advocated for a pointy tip on the lightning rod instead of the more common broad tip lightning rod, which doesn't attract lightning because it's metal, it attracts it because of its pointy shape, isolation, and height. Wow, what an educational adventure this has been. What do you remember? Is this the Mandela Effect changing things? Is it mass misremembering? Is it widely reported misinformation? I mean, honestly, who really knows anymore? I wonder what widely known and accepted fact isn't going to be true tomorrow. Let's talk about Uncle Sam, the visual personification of the US government. He's a stern, older man with white hair, dressed in red, white, and blue. I'm sure you can probably picture him in your head. Well, today, I'd like to talk about the historical Mandela effect surrounding him. Uncle Sam is most famously known for his depiction in a 1917 recruitment poster, one that reads, "I want you" for US Army. This poster was a patriotic propaganda piece to get young men to sign up for the military. Here's my question for you. In this famous piece, Uncle Sam is wearing a hat. I want you to tell me what is on that hat. So many people online and in person remember that hat having red vertical stripes, but as of now, it's entirely white on top. The red stripes that so many seem to remember aren't there anymore. Now that you're looking at it, how do you feel about this hat? Does that look weird to you, or is this how you remember it? Now the strange thing about this hat is the number of times it's been recreated, but with those red stripes. So often, in fact, that it's perplexing how this ever came to be. The original doesn't have them, but copy after copy after copy does. It's a real mystery. What do you remember? When you visit the Statue of Liberty, can you go up into the torch? What I learned when I was younger was that you were always able to go into the head of the Statue of Liberty and the torch. I heard that it was shut down for a while in the 1980s for refurbishment and repairs, but after that was finished, you could still visit the torch. Only after the attacks in 2001 were you not allowed up there anymore. Now, perhaps everything I was taught was wrong, and it's always been wrong, but that's what I've always known and have been taught. The truth as it is now is that not since 1916 could you go up into the torch. Does that sound strange to anyone? Now, to bring everything together, the reason you can't go inside of it is because of the structural damage caused by the Black Tom explosion. Another detail I find interesting is the belief that it was closed in the 1980s for simple refurbishment and repairs, to fix the years and years of wear and tear. That isn't actually what it was. It was once again to work on the damage caused by the explosion. Another one where I'm like, what? Again, why did no one ever talk about the Black Tom explosion if it's what caused those problems? What's interesting for this Mandela effect is that you can find residue all over the internet of people remembering how they visited the torch. They went there as a kid, they went there as an adult, they went there with their grandparents. Recounts of people's experiences can be found all over the internet if you want to look further into this, but for now, I'll leave it at that. One of the most persistent American Mandela effects is the belief that the United States has 52 states instead of 50. Now, as an American myself, I know this is not true. We have 50 states, the 50th being Hawaii, that joined the Union in 1959. But for some reason, a lot of people believe there are 52 states. This isn't just me talking. Surveys have shown that a surprising number of people confidently answer 51 or 52 when asked. I'm not sure if it's people including Washington, D.C. or Puerto Rico, or maybe it's people that live outside of the United States and don't necessarily know all of the states. Whatever it is, this is one of the most persistent American Mandela effects. The Lincoln Memorial is one of the most iconic monuments in the United States. Since 1922, Lincoln has rested prominently in the National Mall in Washington, D.C. This massive statue is 19 feet tall and weighs over 175 tons. It's even been featured in a bunch of movies and TV shows, and was even the backdrop to Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous "I Have a Dream" speech. Needless to say, it's a very well-known statue and work of art. I've even been there myself, and it's pretty incredible to look up at. I bring all this up today because many people believe that this statue has changed, specifically Abraham Lincoln's hands. Here is what many people remember. Both hands were symmetrical, calmly resting palm down on the arms of his chair, almost as if he was going to use his hands to lift himself up. This is what so many people seem to remember, but as of now, that's not the case. His right hand is still relaxed, but his left hand is now a closed fist. Which one of these do you remember? Both being relaxed, or one relaxed and one closed? Anyway, let me know what you think. I've seen quite a few people arguing it's changed, so I really want to hear some new and fresh perspectives. Every American has at least heard of Paul Revere, the American revolutionary that took a midnight ride through Concord to warn his fellow colonists that the British were coming. This April 18, 1775 ride was to spread the news that British soldiers were on their way. The story goes that his warning gave the local militias a tactical advantage in the battles of Lexington and Concord. Well, just how accurate is this? Here's my question. Did Paul Revere ride through the streets shouting, "The British are coming"? Yes or no? The answer is no. For starters, he wasn't alone on that fateful night. He rode with two others. Secondly, he never even made it to Concord, which was the location of his famous ride, meaning he never once shouted, "The British are coming." The famous line and ride was actually completed by one of the other riders that night. In fact, Paul Revere, as of now, was apprehended by a British soldier before he even really got started. Later in the night, he did eventually get away after questioning, but by leaving his horse behind and fleeing. By the time he arrived at his destination, the war had already started. So tell me, is that what you remember learning? Was Paul Revere an American patriot and Revolutionary War hero? Or was he just a guy that tried to do what he thought was right but ultimately failed to accomplish his goal? Upon discovering this Mandela effect, I read through article after article trying to get all the facts straight and to make it make sense, but it just simply doesn't. Paul Revere never completed his ride, and he never shouted, "The British are coming." Now, some of you may point to the poem Paul Revere's Ride as a counter to this Mandela effect. But the thing is, that poem was published 40 years after Paul Revere's death, and nearly 100 years after his supposed ride. I don't know about you, but this Mandela effect trips me out so hard. Let me hear your thoughts below. Let's talk about the classic painting, American Gothic, by Grant Wood. This was created in 1930 and has been replicated, recreated, and emulated in other forms of art numerous times because it's such an iconic piece. It's an older couple, a farmer and wife, standing in front of their farmhouse. The man is holding a pitchfork, and both of them look very weary and tired. Many say that this painting really captured this moment in time in Iowa. So what's the Mandela effect? Well, that couple in the painting, it isn't a husband and wife. It's actually a farmer and his blonde-haired daughter. That's right, not husband and wife. It's actually a farmer and his blonde-haired daughter. But a ton of people online are really confused about this because they believe it was an older couple. When this painting was created, Grant Wood actually used his sister as a model for the daughter in the painting, so this being the farmer's blonde-haired daughter has seemingly always been the case. But then why do so many people remember an older woman? Some online have speculated that the painting must have been changed or altered, but there is currently no evidence that any change has ever been made to this. When it first appeared in the Cedar Rapids Gazette, a local newspaper, real Iowa farmers and wives were mad. They believed it to be a nasty caricature of Midwestern farmers, believing American Gothic made these farmers out to be pinched, grim-faced, puritanical Bible thumpers. That's not all. In fact, one wife of an Iowan farmer told Grant Wood that he should have his head bashed in for the piece. Apparently the farmers and their wives were not a fan of this piece, which is hilarious because nowadays it's revered as this beautiful piece of this time and place. But actually the people that lived in that time and place thought it was pretty awful. In fact, Grant tried to defend himself as a loyal Iowan by insisting that the people in American Gothic aren't intended to be farmers, but rather small-town folk. Not Iowans, but generic Americans. Absolutely hilarious. George Washington Carver is a man every American who attended public school has learned about. He's most known for the over 300 incredible uses of peanuts he discovered. Now, with all that in mind, was it George Washington Carver that discovered peanut butter? Yes or no? Like every memory of yours that I unintentionally destroy, this is yet another one to throw away. As it turns out, George Washington Carver did not discover peanut butter. And no, this isn't a simple he did, but it was actually discovered long before him and kind of forgotten situation. It turns out that 3 people discovered it before him, including the ancient Inca and Aztec civilizations. Does that sound right to you? If you're like me, you grew up learning that George Washington Carver found over 300 uses for peanuts, including his most famous discovery, peanut butter. Unfortunately though, history doesn't seem to agree with this anymore. Am I the only one here with these now inaccurate memories? I hope not. Please, let me hear all of your thoughts in the comments below. Here's a music Mandela effect for you. What was the color of Bruce Springsteen's bandana on the iconic cover of his 1984 album, Born in the USA? If you're picturing a red bandana tucked into the back of his jeans, you're not alone. That's how thousands of people very clearly remember it. But here's where things get weird. It's still red. It's just not a bandana anymore. If you look at the album cover today, you'll see that it is actually a red baseball cap stuffed into his back pocket. Actually, the more I look at this, how does it even stay there? Like, how is it positioned in his pants that it just hangs there? It looks like Photoshop, honestly, but nope, that's the real image now. This is one of those really weird Mandela effects that makes you question everything. Because if you ask people who grew up with this album, people who own the physical copy of it, they'll swear it was a bandana and not a hat. And it's not just a few people here and there who are misremembering. There are countless discussions online where people insist this album cover has changed. Not only that, many claim they even remember specific details about the bandana, like its pattern or the way it's folded, and yet now it's a hat. Go check your copies, search online, it doesn't matter. They all show the same thing now, a red baseball cap. Is that what you remember? The man who crossed the Delaware, led a revolution, and became the United States of America's first president. George Washington was a man of legend and stature. Now, because this man is so well known, this upcoming Mandela effect should be easy for you. Growing up, George Washington didn't have access to the best dental care. In fact, in the early 20s, he started losing teeth. During his lifetime, he went through numerous pairs of unsightly and painful dentures. By the time he became the American president, he only had 1 tooth left. So here's where the Mandela effect comes in. Did George Washington have wooden teeth? Yes or no? George Washington absolutely did not have wooden teeth. It has been a long-standing belief/fact that George Washington had wooden teeth. Most Americans were taught this or learned this in school. Well, as it is now, George Washington never had wooden teeth. In fact, wood was never even an element in any of his many pairs of dentures. His dentures were in fact made out of hippopotamus ivory, metal fasteners, and human teeth. As it is now, George Washington never had wooden teeth. Is that what you remember? Let me hear your thoughts in the comments below. Today we're checking out the most searched Mandela effect in every US state. So this should be pretty interesting. In this video, I'll be going state by state, and here's how it works. They based all of these results off of Google Trends data to uncover the most searched Mandela effect in every single state. Ready? Let's get started. Up first is Michigan, which is the only tie in today's list. What were the ties? Well, the first was Febreze. What people remember is Febreze being spelled like this, and what it actually is this. See those double E's beside each other? Doesn't exist. So that's the first tie for Michigan, and the second one is Jiffy Peanut Butter. And what people actually remember is Jiffy Peanut Butter, but what it actually is Jif Peanut Butter. For the state of Nevada, the most searched Mandela effect is Grease Lightning. So what people remember is this, Grease Lightning, but what it actually is Greased Lightning. This is in reference to the song from the 1971 musical Grease, which was later adapted into the 1978 film of the same name starring John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John. Many people seem to remember the title of the song being Grease Lightning, but it's actually Greased Lightning. It's just interesting to me that this is what Nevada is thinking about. I had actually never heard of this Mandela effect before until reading this article, so that's actually pretty interesting. And the more I dove into it, there's actually other Mandela effects about the lyrics within this song. So, I don't know, maybe that's something I'll cover in the future if you're interested. Which one sounds right to you? Let me hear it in the comments. Next on the list is Idaho, and their most searched Mandela effect is Kit Kat. And what people remember is Kit Kat having a dash between Kit and Kat, but actually there's no dash. It doesn't exist and has never existed. For New York, it's Mike and Ike. And what people remember is that it was Mike and then the letter in Ike. Mike in Ike. But what it actually is Mike and Ike. Mike and Ike. This is one of those that I remember, but I guess it never had an N? Okay, sure. New York, I get it. The next state included, which is not actually a state, is Washington, D.C., but it's part of the United States, so you know what? You don't have statehood, but I'm including you in this list. And the Mandela Effect they most searched up is Sex in the City. That's what people remember, Sex in the City. But what it actually is Sex and the City. So not in, and. Then we come to West Virginia, and their big one is Skechers. So what people remember is Skechers with a T, but there's actually no T in Skechers. The Mandela Effect that is most searched in New Mexico is Smokey the Bear. So people remember it being Smokey the Bear, but what it actually is Smokey Bear. Another weird one that freaks me out regarding Smoky is the Smoky Mountains. That there's no E, so it's like Smoky Mountains. Yeah, it's a whole other thing I've talked about before, but yeah, that one's weird. I get it, New Mexico. Next up is the state of Oregon, and what people remember is Berenstain with an E, but what it actually is Berenstain with an A. Arizona is up next, and I completely understand this one too, because this one used to get me back in the day. So, what people remember is Tostino's Pizza Rolls, but it is not Tostino's, it is Totino's. Totino's Pizza Rolls, not Tostino's. Here's a curious one for Ohio. What people remember is whiteout, like WHITE, dash out, white out. But what it actually is WITE, wit, witty, witty out, wit out? It's still called whiteout, but it's just spelled different. And I know a lot of times corporations, they name something different than it actually is so they can copyright the name. I get it, trademarks, etc., copyright, I understand. It's just weird. I don't remember it that way. What about you? I'm excited to announce from now on out, every single one of these is going to include 2 or more states. So it's Nebraska and Illinois. And the Mandela Effect they share is Oscar Mayer, not Oscar Mayer. M-A-Y-E-R versus M-E-Y-E-R. Next we have New Hampshire and Oklahoma. And both of them share the Cheez-Its Mandela Effect. What most people remember is Cheez-Its, but what it actually is Cheez-It. Cheez-It. Not Cheez-Its. Cheez-It. Hey honey, can you pass the Cheez-It? Then we have Rhode Island and Louisiana. And the Mandela Effect they search up the most is Chuck E. Cheese's. So a lot of people seem to remember Chuck E. Cheese's, as in Chucky is one name and then Cheese's. But it's actually Chuck E. Cheese. Chuck E. Cheese. The E is actually his middle name. Then we come to the beautiful states of Maine and Hawaii, and both of them share something very specific, that they remember Cliff Bar with 2 Fs, but it's actually Cliff Bar with 1 F. The most searched Mandela Effect for Indiana and New Jersey is actually the Flintstones. So what people remember is the Flintstones, like Flynn Stones, the Flintstones. But what it actually is the Flint Stones. So there's a T at the end of Flynn, Flint versus Flynn. Next I have Alaska, Arkansas, and Tennessee, and the Mandela Effect that they have all searched up the most is Fruit Loops. What many people remember is Fruit Loops, and fruit is spelled like the word fruit, and what it actually is Fruit Loops, F-R-O-O-T. Next up we have Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Pennsylvania. Which is the Mandela Effect that they most searched? It is York Peppermint Patty. So what people remember is that patty at the end is spelled P-A-T-T-Y, but it's actually spelled P-A-T-T-I-E. These next 4 states, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming, all remembered Captain Crunch, as in Captain spelled all the way out. But what it actually is Cap in Crunch. Cap'n Crunch. Then we come to Alabama, Delaware, Georgia, and South Carolina. And the Mandela Effect they search the most is Chick-fil-A. So what people remember is Chick-fil-A without a K. But actually, it has a K. And this is one of those weird ones that really hits me hard, because when I was young, the first time I ever had Chick-fil-A, I remember looking at it and thinking, why isn't Chick spelled correctly? Now it turns out Chick-fil-A has always been spelled that way. Sure. Then we have Maryland, Missouri, North Carolina, and Virginia. And the Mandela Effect they most search for is double stuff Oreo. So what people remember is double stuff Oreo, and stuff is spelled correctly. But the way it actually is double stuff Oreo with 1 F. We're getting close to the end now, because California, Colorado, Florida, Texas, and Washington State, all of them share the same most searched Mandela Effect, and that is Funyuns. So what people remember is this spelling of Funyuns, where it looks like it's fun and onions kind of combined into one, but what it actually is Funyuns. Funyuns. So which do you remember? Here it is, the final most searched Mandela Effect. And I know what you're thinking. You haven't said my state yet. Well, guess what? There's 7 states that they searched up this one the most, and I get it. I completely understand this one. So what people remember is Rice Krispie treats, right? Everybody knows those, Rice Krispie treats. What it actually is Rice Krispies treats. So not Rice Krispie treats, Rice Krispies treats. So what do you think? Do you agree with this list of the most searched Mandela effects in every US state? Or have you also spotted the glaring flaws in its methodology? To start, looking up data on 24 specific Mandela effects isn't the way to come to any conclusion other than which state looked up these 24 Mandela effects the most. Secondly, it'd be way too hard to accurately measure something like this. Too many things to account for. Not to mention that there are well over 1,000 Mandela effects at this point, and you'd have to search for every correct spelling, every misspelling, every typo, and account for every variable that could create an issue. But besides all of that, is this accurate or scientific? No. But is it fun? Absolutely. So tell me, did any of these Mandela effects shock you? Kind of like how Rice Krispies treats did for me? That one, I hate the Mandela effect. No, I love it, but I hate it at the same time, and I'm sure many of you can relate. It's just so freaky and weird and fun and compelling, but also kind of terrifying. Anyway, thank you for watching. My name is Alltime. Subscribe to the channel as well as my 2 other channels, Alltime 2 and Alltime Clips. And if you like these and you want to watch 30+ exclusive videos, be sure to check out my Patreon. Links to everything are in the description below. And until next time, never stop searching.